So again, when you think about that model, and I think it's just really important, as we've heard, it's not just one piece, and the beauty of obviously maximizing potential, it's blending physical, fundamental, mental, and so we heard about the fundamental, we got the physical, and Luke and Justin just talked about how the mental plays a role in that and how important that is. And so now you guys got it all, right? You got it all. You're ready to go out, implement it, and get your guys better. But I think as we top this all off, you guys just got some unbelievable information from guys who are passionate in studying it, using their experiences, and then even further studying it with going through their masters and learning about all these different things that can only enhance. But when you think about coaching, if we have all this great information, but then the way that we are presenting it to our players, the way that we're communicating and talking with our players, sometimes all those great things you've written down in your notebooks aren't as impactful or don't have the effect that we know and we've seen all the numbers and seen all the improvement that it actually, right? It actually can have almost a negative impact sometimes. So really excited to kind of finish off this day one with Luke and talking about just the art of communication and effective communication. Luke is right down the street from us, Lake County Captain's Manager, second year. Luke, 15 professional seasons, and 4 of those spent in the big leagues as a catcher. And so again, a lot of playing experience and then transitioning into coaching, using those experience and again, digging deep. And as I said, he's finishing up his masters. And so really excited for Luke to share some of the things that I think, again, are the cherry on top of you guys implementing with your program. So let's give Luke a round of applause.
Thanks.
Oh, and by the way, he's from Quebec, Canada, so this is like summer for you, and so he didn't even bring a jacket. Love it.
Yeah. So I live in Dallas now, and I was all excited to come up and see the snow. Got off the plane yesterday, and I was like, oh man, I just want to get back on and head home. I mean, the cold's a little different here. The elephant in the room here with kind of this stuff, Thule couldn't hit, I couldn't hit, Jimmy couldn't hit, Pete couldn't hit, right? Like, we are not good hitters. And there was a lot of other factors involved for some of our playing success or whatever it is. So a lot of what we're going to say, I want you to understand this comes from a large place of humility here. By no means do we have the answers to all of your questions or that we think we just know everything. That's just not the case. The more we learn, the more we realize we have no idea what we're talking about half the time. So we can share some of our ideas and some of the things about how we go about it. And especially this one for me, not a naturally good communicator. I'd probably get into more arguments than anybody in this room, go head to head with a lot of my colleagues. We just understand that it comes from a place of caring, and we try to have a dialogue as more so than confrontation. So getting right into it here, I want to talk a little bit about, get on the same page as far as the language. Okay, what is communication? It's just simply the sharing of information. All right. For our terms right here, it is feedback. So this is real. I want to highlight this for us. When I'm talking about change, communicating change, I'm talking about a movement change. So if you want to create a movement change in a hitter, this is what I'm going to cover today. I think there's some really good highlighted points when Jimmy was talking about the lighthouses. If you're trying to get a kid towards one of those lighthouses, I'm going to give you some tools to help you do that. You put a weighted bat in the kid's hand, guess what? You don't have to say anything. Maybe it helps him, right? Maybe he figures it out on his own. Best case scenario for us, right? When they start solving the problems by themselves. Thule hit on it a little bit. The motor learning that we were talking about, that's a really interesting topic. If you guys haven't dug into that at all, I'll provide some resources at the end. I would highly suggest looking at it, okay? So, talking about feedback. It's information about performance. So it's how are you going to correct it? Did you do it well? Did you not? So it's for future corrections. So that's really important. There's different types of feedback. We could probably spend 2 hours talking about all the different ways we can give feedback or that the player can receive feedback. I'm going to highlight 3 of them here for you today. Again, there's a lot. Inherent feedback, it's basically like, oh, this is this is kind of heavy here, right? That's inherent feedback. It's cold outside. Your environment is providing you with some feedback, right? So it's kind of like your awareness. And awareness is a big word here, so it's that inherently, what do you feel? What can you see? What can you taste? That's what inherent feedback is. These next 2 are going to be huge for us. There's knowledge of results. So what Pete talked about with like the bat speed, and they monitor that stuff. So exit velo, launch angles, how far you hit it. That's knowledge of results. This is what we want our guys to be really good at, the results. We want our hitters to move in a way that produces really good results. So I think this is important. So if you're talking about setting up your practices in high school or even at the youth level, it's a lot of group settings. There's going to be, there's going to be some energy. You're trying to build a culture here. You want some intent that these guys have talked about. You're going to want to try to provide some type of knowledge of results for them so that they know that they're accomplishing the task, okay? When we're talking about creating a movement change, this is knowledge of performance. It's how the body moves or how the object moves. So here's the deal. I picked up this chair. That's a knowledge of result. Did I do a bicep curl or did I do a shoulder raise, right? That's a knowledge of performance. The chair still went up, but I did it 2 different ways. So if you've got a younger player, especially for you younger, so I believe it was you, sir, and the Indians, right? You were talking about the younger players with the weighted bat stuff, right? Like, what if the kid gets in here and he's like this? Well, Pete said, he was like, well, you're probably going to have to, like, coach him through some couple things, right? Like, you can't be swinging like this. Okay. This is knowledge of performance here. And we're going to get into this, and we're going to have a couple breakout sessions to work through some of these things, but those are 2 really important things that we need to separate right now. The environment that you're creating for movement change, is it focused on knowledge of results, or is it focused on knowledge of performance? And how we go about coaching that is going to be different, or how we go about communicating in those 2 different environments is completely different, okay? So here are some similarities and some differences between the knowledge of results. I kind of gave you a little bit right here, but they're both verbal, they're both after the fact, okay? Results, it's about the goal outcome. Performance, it's about the movement. Scores, games, something that you can, this is great. So like all the games that you guys want to create, which I highly recommend, gamification with everything that we do, that's kind of over here. You see more research done in this result than you do in the performance. It's just easier. Researchers love data. That's what they're going to go for, okay? With the knowledge of performance, it's more of the teaching, the parenting sometimes, or the daily activities, like, yeah, you didn't do that right, okay? That's more about knowledge of performance. Here's where it can get a little tricky. You guys need to think about, I'm not going to cover all this today, okay, but the timing of when this happens, how much you give it, and the accuracy in which you give your feedback. Those are probably 3 of the most important things that you could think about when you give feedback. And I would say that's probably like step 2 or 3. Today we're going to cover some step 1 ABC kind of things. But there's a lot of research that says about when we should do it, how much we should do it, and how accurately we are with it, okay? So here are some communication tools. Now this is really important. I can come back to this slide for you guys, but you're going to want to know these because in our breakout sessions here in a minute, you're going to use them. Okay, so for tools, let's see if I got this here. There we go. All right, so the iPad here on the corner, I think that's one of the best tools that I have. So I take mine everywhere. You guys have, I'm sure, something similar. We all have phones now that can take video. Your iPhone's probably the best video camera we could buy, okay? This is providing visual feedback. So you're going to do something, video it, here you go, have a look, right? We're going to talk about that process here in a minute, but that's what I mean by the iPad. The blast, the tech. Here's the, the blast motion stuff. You guys probably heard of that. That's the Diamond Kinetics thing. I think that's like Correa or Altuve up there or something. I don't know who that is. Diamond Kinetics. Some stats over here. So Pete, I keep pressing the wrong button. So Pete was showed us some stats. That's feedback. Hit tracks. I have this video camera right here. This is video of big leaguers. So Jimmy, Tooley, Pete all showed big leaguers, okay? So you're showing the kid, this is what big leaguers do. All right, you got this guy who's demonstrating. So our demonstrations are a type of, information communication tool. We've got nonverbals. So I put the emojis up here. This is nonverbal communication. Tooley talked about your kid hits it into the ground. You're like, oh, man. Your body language, that stuff, okay? K-Vest and some of the analytics that come with it. So if you guys ever heard of K-Vest, it's just a really expensive tool that provides some feedback, communicates some knowledge of performance with us as well, okay? And then finally, there's our verbal. What we say and how we say it. We're going to touch on this verbal a little bit more here. So on this spectrum of communication, you'll see that on the left, there's direct. There's direct communication. I tend to be a direct communicator, which is why I have some issues sometimes. But for those of you who are married or have kids, you would know that this stuff doesn't go over very well all the time, right? Or at least I do. I'm married 10 years now. This doesn't work. But there's a time and a place for it. All the way over here is listening. We kind of see that progression going throughout. Again, I can come back to this slide too, but you guys are going to want to know these. Just understand that you're going from directive to following the player's interest. So when you're communicating, which one of these are you going to use becomes really important. All right. With those communication tools, we're going to talk about these stages of learning. There's a lot of different ways that we can think about this. There's actual in the research. There's motor learning stages. Pete talked about the Bernstein principle. Mr. Bernstein has his stages of learning. There's another guy, Fitz. He did a lot of research. He's got his stages of learning. There's competency models. If you guys have ever heard of those competency models, like the pyramid, unconsciously incompetent, consciously incompetent, consciously competent, unconsciously incompetent, or inconsciously competent, whatever, right? All you need to know is that stage one, you have the village idiot. He doesn't know, and we're going to talk about these in a little bit, okay? The village idiot, then there's the next level, the apprentice, the journeyman, and then the master. So, the village idiot. This guy has no idea what he's doing. He's got his head in the sand. And I don't mean this in a derogatory way. We just don't know what we don't know. So, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know how you're doing it. You don't know when to do it. And you don't know why you're doing it. That's the village idiot. With your communication tools, how should we communicate with the village idiot? I'd like you to break up at your tables. We're going to take a few minutes. I said 5 on here. I think we could probably do it in 2. But with those communication tools, which ones are you going to use to help change in this guy? Let's do it. You guys want the other slides back up there, or you think you got them? Which one? Yeah, so we'll use that. You want to use this one? Okay. All right. 2 minutes. Perfect. Let them know. About 20 seconds. 20 more seconds, guys. Okay. All right. This table right here. This table right here. One of you guys speak for your table. How would you communicate change with the village idiot?
All right, so we decided basically it's instruction and telling for this particular idiot, because it's hard to give advice to someone who has no practical experience or know what they're doing. So the best way to, achieve the goal or common goal is to tell them, show them what's expected of them. Here's how to do it, model the behavior, and then go from there.
I like it. So you went directive. So out of these right here, you were on this side over here.
Yes.
Gotcha. You did say show them, right? What did you go for it, Mark? What did you say?
Yeah, so it's sell, tell, ask. So the value first, obviously you've got to show and tell, but actually, obviously village idiot isn't a indication of lack of intelligence or EQ, it's just ignorance in the knowledge
Doesn't
or skill
know,
set.
right.
Yeah, right. So it's sell, value, tell, show, but then it's always back to questioning because we want to see how quickly they're aware, picking it up, back to tell if needed be.
All right,
So
yeah,
it's
well, you're
still-
cheating. You already know this stuff, but yeah. You can't ask Mark. No, but that's good. That's really good. How about this table right here? Now that they've given you the answers, you get a chance to either say yes or no. Because I'm actually going to argue with Mark just a little bit. So don't think he's like the authority on this just yet.
We actually went complete opposite. Because before you go to telling instruction, they might not be capable of doing what you're going to tell them or ask them to do. So you want to find out what they think they're doing and what they are feeling before you go into the telling.
Awesome. So we have two guys on the different spectrum here. So this is what I love about this. This is what I love about this, is that when I heard this table talk, I don't disagree with them. I'm like, yeah, he's got no idea what to do. We're going to have to show them what to do. We're going to have to show the village idiot what to do. And Mark said he need to check for understanding afterwards and say, like, well, what does he actually know, right? You went with, hey, what does this kid actually know? Like, let's find out. Let's listen first and then work down, right? So I think you're both hitting at some really important parts here. Here's what I came up with. Here's what I came up with, and this is experience, research, talking to a lot of other coaches, mentors, first thing we do is we support them. Anytime they're going to try to train or you show them that they have no idea what they're talking about, we need to be supportive. Okay, so it's how we go about it. That connection with a player, I'll talk about here in a minute, that connection with the player that Pete talked about, that's the very first thing. I don't know you, but if I said, yeah, that's not it. Who am I? Now, I'm in a position of authority on him because I'm his coach, hypothetically speaking, but that only gets you 2 steps, right? It doesn't create change, just lets everybody know that you're the boss. So you have to be supportive, and we have to have some humility here. This is one thing, what I love about the contrasting things between Jimmy and Pete. Pete didn't talk a whole lot of mechanics. Jimmy talked a whole lot of mechanics. Really cool blend dynamic between the two. Humility. What is it, Jimmy? Did you say we argued all in spring training, or were you saying that? No, Pete. Pete was talking about how we argue about this. Humility. Hey, guess what? Here's a couple lighthouses that maybe you're willing to say I can help this kid with. At the end of the day, I'm like, what would I take a bullet for? Not a whole lot other than a few of those lighthouses. So it's, again, some humility as we go through this, okay? We ask questions. Well, hey, bud, what are you trying to do? Right? We create the aha moment, and this is how you get your buy-in. With the village idiot, you give him a problem to solve, that he can't solve it. We talked about that. Or you ask him a question, or you plant a seed, or you can show him video to where he's like, oh, man, I'm not doing that. The second you can create the awareness, we can move on. He's no longer the village idiot. He's aware of his surroundings. And I thought Mark brought up a really good point. Maybe I should have used a different word. It's not like the kid's stupid, right? It's not that he's challenged in any way. It's just he just doesn't know, right? And I think we're all in that place at some point in our lives. Right now, I am a village idiot in some area of my life that I just don't know about yet, okay? So it takes people, it takes a group like us to create the aha moment for that kid. We move on, okay? Improvement stage 2, the apprentice. So here's the apprentice. This is kind of what you guys were talking about right here. This was this group. You guys were quickly moving on to the apprentice. The village idiot, that stage is like that. As soon as you can create that moment and the kid's like, okay, what do I need to do? How do I need to do it? I obviously know that I'm not doing it well. The first problem is cognitive. What does success look like? That's our responsibility as a coach. What is success? Is success hitting the ball 100 miles an hour? Or is it not swinging from your kneecaps? What is success? When we talked about knowledge of results and knowledge of performance, we need to be really specific with this. If we're creating a movement change, success will be creating the correct movement. We'll be creating the lighthouse initially. So here's some really cool actually, I don't want to give you answers yet. Okay, so I almost did. Why are we doing this? Maybe it's healthy. I work with a lot of throwers. I work with our catchers. We have catchers throwing from down here, doing all this stuff. Hey, that's probably going to hurt your arm. This is one of the reasons why we don't want to do that. Okay? When to do it, how to do it, it's an understanding. The first problem is this, like, can they wrap their head around what's happening? What are they supposed to do? Okay? Again, what would you take a bullet for? Because if you're going to tell them something, you don't want to be working in the wrong direction. Here's I can't tell you how many kids I've told something to where I had to go 2-3 years later and be like, hey man, I told you to do this, I was wrong. That's not actually what's supposed to happen. I was just working with the best information I had at the time. Like I've done that, I can't tell you how many kids I've done that to. So, just be very careful, whatever you're going to show them, would you take a bullet for it? If not, I would go to weighted bats. I would go to knowledge of results. I would say, man, there's a lot of differences here. I don't really know, okay? So, dang it, I gave you more answers than I wanted to. 2 more minutes, breakout, how would you coach the apprentice? Okay, 2 minutes, what tools would you use to coach the apprentice? Here we go, I'll put this stuff back up here. Matt, you on my timer? I got it. Okay. How am I doing on time? What am I in right now? 15 minutes? 20? Matt, what do we got? About a minute? 1 minute. All right, let's wrap it up. See if I can get to the village idiot here. Okay. Okay. This table right here. How would you do it? What would you use? What tools would you use? Somebody from this table.
I kind of stepped out of the box, dealing with the guys I deal with on a daily basis. One of the things, we float ideas. Whenever I'm a deputy U.S. Marshal, so we deal with a lot of stuff. If we have an incident happen, we bring everybody together and we talk it out, whether we have first or second year operators or guys that have been on the job for 15 to 20 years. We kind of sit together and we kind of float out ideas about what happened, walk through the situation, depending on the outcome, good, bad, and different. That way everybody gets an opinion. We hear their opinion, and we try to come together with an amendable outcome, if you will.
So I heard him, what was your name, sir? David. So I heard David say he's going to float out some ideas. I heard collaboration. I heard a partnership there. Seemed like more of a community collectiveness to the apprenticeship. So if we're obviously, yep, sorry, go ahead.
Just due to the fact that we're looking at apprentices, they have a little bit of knowledge, so they're getting a little bit more dangerous, if you will. They'll let them grow, make mistakes, come back, fall back in.
Love it. Yeah. Yeah, it's exploring. They're exploring a little bit. They're fumbling. Think of it as riding a bike, right? Like, okay, you're going to fall down a couple times. Like, you're not going to hold the training wheel the whole time. So it's, yes, I love that. How about we did those two? How about this table right here? How are we going to coach the apprentice?
We were kind of almost on the same page with the partnership aspect of it, because they have some knowledge of what they want to try to do. They may not know the best way to do it, so you're going to kind of create the way that you want to work it, whether it's their ideas or your ideas. So for the floating of the ideas and the partnership aspect, we were in the same boat with that.
Awesome. Awesome. So I want to clarify, yes, I want to clarify this stage. This stage is the day one apprentice, where the guy realized, like, oh, okay, I want to be a baseball player. I know I'm not doing that well. Can you help me? How should I do this? So you're answering some of the questions for these guys when we'll get to it, but here we go. Here's what I got. I heard somebody over here say, we got to use all of them, right? We got to use the whole thing. Here's the trick with this. Yes, we're going to use the whole spectrum as needed with the player. Use it the whole time. There's an easy answer. But here are some just things to think about when you're working with the apprentice, okay? The partnership, floating the idea, I had that on there myself, okay? Again, it's still connecting with the player. I have it towards the top of my list. This becomes a teaching thing here. We are moving from a little bit of a coach to a little bit of a teacher with some of this stuff. We have to explain the lighthouse. We have to show them the lighthouse. We have to direct their spotlight to the lighthouse. The kid might think like, well, you know what? I get it all the time. Well, you know what? He did a really good job, not overstriding. Or they'll say, I don't know what they'll say. They'll say, he did a really good job tipping the bat, right? And then you have like Altuve with his bat there the whole time. I'm like, did he really tip the bat right there? So you ask questions. You plant seeds. You create more aha moments. It's a learning process. So it's stage 1 and stage 2 right here, okay? We're using analogies. Hey, multi-sport athletes, you ever played basketball? You ever played football? Like, what's an athletic stance to you? You're asking questions. I'm not telling you, like, okay, you need to be at 32.4 degrees with the posture like Jimmy's talking about. Like, no, what's athletic to you? Show me, right? What you talked about, Dave talked about here, this is a big one for me. Q times C equals B. You'll get this from a lot of business coaching stuff. The quality of the idea times the commitment of the player equals the benefit. I was talking to you about my shortcomings from a communication standpoint. I wanted the best idea. I educated myself on saying, this is the answer, this is the best idea, here's why I know it, here's this, here's that, and I wouldn't get any of this. And I'd be on my island with all the answers I thought I knew, with no benefit. Okay? Commitment, connection. Pete talked about connecting with this high school coach. Man, I'm always going to bring you back to that. Or college, it was college coach, right? So, this is a big one. Mark talked about check for understanding. So if we're going to give them information, let's check for understanding. That comes through questions. So I'm more interested about, at this point, what the apprentice actually knows than I am about just laying out all the answers here. The apprentice drives this learning stage. If I can't just say, here's a book, go for it. That's not it, okay? And then this is a big one right here, and we're going to move on after this. Knowledge of performance, show me. And here's the big one. Here's the kicker. I don't care if the kid can actually tell me what to do. I need him to show me. So they might not know how to use words, right? So if you've got a really cool analogy I'll use for you or a simile. If any of you have kids or work with really young kids or whatever, and they just start crying or they act out their frustration, they act out their emotions, they do not have the language to communicate. That's why they act out. Your player at this stage might not have the language to communicate the same thing that you think that lighthouse is communicating. Show me. I don't care what you say. Show me. You want to drill into the ground? Show me what that looks like. Great. Okay? And then we use the iPad. Here's what you actually look like. Show me. Yeah, how did it go? Did you do it or did you not? Success is you doing this movement. Did you do it? Yeah, I did it. Here's your video. Oh, no, I didn't do it. Cool. Show me again. Right? It is not the coach saying, yep, nope, yep, nope, That's not it. Doesn't matter. You're trying to get the kid away from you. We're creating self-awareness. That's the biggest part right here, self-awareness. Can the kid feel what he's doing? Can they feel it? And then you're asking questions, what would that feel like? Man, I really feel like I was swinging straight up. Awesome. I want you to feel like you're swinging straight up on these next 5. I feel like I'm swinging straight down. Awesome. Here's what you look like. Here's that lighthouse. Do you see it? Yeah, I see it. Or no. What do you see? That's probably the better question. What do you see? Yeah, I see this lighthouse. Awesome. How does that feel? Swinging straight down. Sweet. Let's keep doing it. Right? All right. So, this tends to take a little bit, and there's some talking involved. We are partnering. We are floating out ideas. We are connecting with the player. We are supporting the player. We are humility in what we're taking our bullets for with these lighthouses, and then we're moving on. Oh, this is really good. Some self-awareness tools. I did not invent any of these. This was all taught to me. Direct the spotlight. Here's what you're going to get. You're going to get a kid to say, you're going to show them, hey, how did you do that? Hey, you know what? My bat was over here doing that. Success is not your bat. Success is directing your spotlight towards what we're trying to accomplish. Knowledge of performance there, okay? Pick one thing and get it right. That's a big one. So the kid's going to be, oh, doing this. No, hey, what are we focused on? Direct the spotlight. Pick one thing, get it right. The iPad, I don't leave home without it. The Show Me, really important. These are some cool tools that we use. I've seen Jimmy do it. I've seen Thule do it. I've seen Pete do it. Here's what I use. Old way, new way. So here's the trick. I think one of us talked about the motor patterns here. So if you do something a certain way, if you want to do it differently, it's not changing this habit, it's creating a new one. So what I'm trying to get you to do here with this old way, new way is I want you to do the old way, do it incorrectly, and then do it correctly. And what you're doing is in your brain, you're creating 2 different roads. And we're figuring out which road we need to go down. That's the old way, new way. So you just go, do it incorrectly, do it correctly. If they can do it, if they can show you the difference, they have an understanding of what they need to do. Okay? Thumbs up, thumbs down. I particularly like this one just because it's not as much talking. We take a swing. Did you do what you wanted to do? Thumbs up. If you didn't, thumbs down. And we can do it in small blocks, like a 5 swing, 10 swing. I wouldn't do more than 10 probably. I try to keep it shorter. I try to keep it like just quick bursts. 5 to 7 swings. Say, did you do it? Thumbs up. If you didn't, thumbs down. We have the whole thing recorded. We show it to them. Oh, yeah, I didn't think. Creating self-awareness. Beautiful. They fix themselves. Okay? All right. Moving on. The journeyman. So this is the player at this stage has a better understanding. Most problems here are solved. So he's got a really good idea of what he's doing. This is kind of what you were talking about here. Like he's got an idea now of what he's trying to do, okay? He's trying to build efficiency. He's trying to figure out ways to do it better. He can detect his own errors, the thumb up, thumb down. He can figure it out a little bit. They are picking up cues and clues. So Thule talked about this, right? You're starting to develop a little bit more difficult, you're solving more difficult problems at this time, at this point, right? You're the soccer player, what's his name, Pete? Ronaldo, right? Those are clues and cues. I mean, he's training cognitive functions here as well, but he's picking up things that, you know what, you and I just couldn't do it because we haven't played soccer for, I haven't, right? Like maybe you could do it, I don't know. So that's the journeyman. This guy is functional. I would actually argue that somewhere between stages 2 and 3, or the apprentice and the journeyman, I would say more like the apprentice. That's where probably I'd start handing them Pete's weighted bats, like, and doing some of that stuff. Like, guess what? If you start swinging from here and you swing faster from real here, we talked about the golf, you're just going to have a really bad, fast golf swing, right? Like, you have to build in some efficiency here. And when we talk about building speed, if you talk to the world's best speed trainers, like the athletes, you're trying to build Usain Bolt. Joe could talk about this probably, I don't know. Movement efficiency is the first thing they attack. You need to start moving efficiently. So if you're running like this, it's just, guess what, dude? You're not going to run the 100-meter, right? We need some efficiency in our movements. So that's where you kind of start. I would say if you've got some kids that they're hitting some lighthouses and they just feel like they got to move a little bit better here, there's a lot of different things that we could do. So that's the journeyman. Let's go 2 minutes. Let's do it. Break it out. How would you coach the journeyman? How am I doing? Where are we at on time? Okay. Almost done. Little less than a minute. Little less than a minute. Try to move through these. Okay. All right. This table back here. This table right here. One of you guys tell us how you would coach the journeyman.
First off, we said we would start with floating ideas and offering advice. They already have a mindset of what they're doing. They already have that type of knowledge. They just need some advice to gain some more, I guess.
Yeah, I like that.
And then reflecting, yeah, and then reflect.
Reflecting.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. I love it. How about, so everybody get that, right? Offering advice and reflecting on what's happened. Awesome. Okay, how about you guys?
Go ahead, he hasn't had that.
I agree with what the previous table said, but I also think philosophically you still got to ask questions, because once you get to that journeyman stage, they think they know everything, and you got to help them realize there's more to it. You can go that extra mile, that step further.
I love it.
I would add that in.
Yeah, awesome. Those are fantastic. Here's what I had. It's going to be a lot of, like, they know what they're doing, right? I love that. I love that they've got an idea. You said float ideas. I said share secrets and experiences. So when you're working with the journeyman, this becomes more, it shifts, right? Like at this point, the movement is pretty good. It's, we're at stage 3 here. So the movement that we're trying to create change, it's not going to look a whole lot different at this point. So they're trying to figure out, how does that work with 95? How does that work with a slider? How does that work with the tactical side of the game? Your environment? How do I interact with what's going on around me? The game situation that becomes more tactical at this point. So that's where you can share your experiences, right? One of the cool things when I was looking, Pete was coming on as a new coach, and they asked some people, hey, what do you think? And I saw a YouTube video of him in the dugout saying, hey, this guy's throwing change-ups and fastball counts. Why don't you guys sit on it? Right? Like that's like you're sharing some experiences right there, right? Like that's some more of a tactical approach to it. You level up. This is add more constraints, add more variability, make it harder than the game. That's where this really comes in. When you've got a foundational movement, general movements that are pretty good, let's go. Let's make it harder than the game. I would say that for at the higher levels, so maybe like some of your like juniors, seniors at the high school level, college level, not that we're not going to create some changes, but at the professional level, I would say we're trying to get them to this stage very quickly. We want them to have really good movements quickly so that they can start gaining experience, going to start getting some more cues and clues, okay? And then it's shifting more from a knowledge of performance to a knowledge of results. So it's like, man, these lighthouses look pretty good, but he's hitting at 84 miles an hour. Get on our bat speed program. Here we go. We want 95. Right? And Pete would argue that the intent in the weighted bats can probably create some kind of clean up some of that lower hanging fruit. I would agree. I would absolutely agree. So we're talking about, we're blending. It's not one or the other here. It's not, you have to do knowledge or performance. I personally, my own suggestion, I would give the kid a bat and I would just say, all right, here we go. Let's see. I wouldn't even spend time educating him, right? I would say like, well, let's just go for it. Let's see what we got. And then have some patience just to see if some of it doesn't clean up on its own, okay? All right. This right here, this is kind of like a mindset here. This is an external focus. So it's kind of a far out. This isn't a, what's my elbow doing? What's my leg doing? What's whatever I was doing? It's, I'm trying to hit that baseball right over there. Again, more of an external focus there, okay? All right, the master. This is the expert performer. Nobody in this room will have coached this guy, including myself, okay? So we're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but these are your major leaguers for me. I mean, there could be some of these guys. We've got some younger guys in our minor league system that I would say are pretty close to this from a hitting standpoint. There's maybe like one I could think of, two, right? There's not a lot, okay? Less internal chatter. So we didn't talk a ton about the cognitive side. The more internal chatter you have, the worse you're going to react, make decisions, be aware of you're going to move slower. So that's why we want to be really careful with our talk and what we're communicating to these hitters. If we put a bunch of information in their head, they're going to slow down. That's why it's so cool to just, hey, that intent, here's a bat, let's go, right? So we have to be really careful with the balance of that. Improvements are slow, but it's not over. I don't know of any major league player I've ever talked to that said, yeah, I've never changed my swing, like I've never made an adjustment, right? Like, it happens. So we're not going to break out into this. It's you listen. You ask questions because, I didn't think about that. Guess what? They're going to come and talk to you because they want your perspective. because they have so much. This is diversity in the workforce, right? You want different opinions. That's why we argue all the time. It's like, man, I just want to know what somebody else has right here, because whatever I'm doing isn't working, or I need to figure out something else. This is totally tactical. This is direct their spotlight. You prepare them for war, and it's a knowledge of results, and it's a reflection. Hey, guess what? You might not want to sit middle away off a Kluber, because he's going to throw a slider out there, and you're just not going to hit it. I don't care if you're looking for it. It's not happening, right? So, okay. This is what I want you to walk away with. I am finishing up. We are less than 5 minutes away here, okay? This is a framework that I use to help create movement change. What does good look like? It's a partnership with the player. What is success? What are we trying to do? This is the quality of the idea times the commitment of the player equals the benefit. We want the player involved in what good looks like. We need to meet the player where he's at. What do you see? Guide them, ask questions. Create self-awareness. Again, we're talking movement changes. Create self-awareness. They need to know if they're doing it or not. They have to be able to feel it. They can't rely on you. If they rely on you, it won't transfer to the game. Once they can once they can feel it, they'll self-correct it. You have to direct their spotlight with it. They might lose sight of it. One thing that I didn't mention, but it was on the slide, that stage, that second and third stage, they take longer. Those stages are really long. Third stage in particular is extremely long, okay? Attaining mastery is really difficult, okay? Once they can self-correct and there's a general foundation, we've hit some of these lighthouses, let's go. Variability, constraints, difficulty, specificity, meaning make it as game-like as possible or harder. The really crappy part about hitting is that unless you put a pitcher on the mound and have him throw to your hitter, like Thule was saying, it's not game-like. And we argue about this all the time. What your eyes see will determine your movements. If you change what you see, you're going to move differently to a certain degree, especially at the higher movement levels, right? General movements like, man, I can make a move to the ball, I'm pretty athletic, I'm making a turn, all that kind of stuff, awesome. Can you do it on time? Can you do it fast enough? Can you make the right decision? All of those will only be trained if you have a pitcher on the mound. We try to do the best job we possibly can with machines and the visual constraints and all that sort of stuff. Just plain simple, we just don't do a good job. That's all there is to it, okay? And then finally, it's the knowledge of results and tactical adjustments. At that point, we become kind of like that, sharing our experiences. Hey man, I faced this guy the other day, or here's what worked for me, I don't know, right? We're helping him with that. Here are the last two slides here. Some one-liners, catchphrases that just hit home for me. If you like them, take them. If you don't, throw them out. You connect through caring. I put that at the top. That is by far the most important. We've heard that through and through today. You see it, you feel it, you change it. You see it, you feel it, you can change it. It has nothing to do with us as coaches. That word is for your player. See it, feel it, change it. Crystal clear direction. Make sure they have a crystal clear vision for what it is that success looks like. Who's doing the talking? So if you're trying to teach somebody, if you're doing the learning, like I'm transmitting a bunch of information right here, if you didn't wrestle with this, if I just transmitted this, you wouldn't retain it. So if you don't revisit this, you might catch 1 or 2 nuggets, but you'll lose it in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, right? So if I really wanted to teach you this, it would be an ongoing dialogue, and you would be doing most of the talking, not me. All right? Review it. The kid takes the swing. Okay, what do you got? Review it. That's a big word for Mark, right? Any of you that work with Mark, he was like, and if you don't know who Mark is, I can tell you who he was after, or ask Matt, but he's like, review it. That's self-awareness, right? And then show me. I use that all the time. I don't care what you say, show me. Yeah, I just want to do this. Great, show me. Okay? Direct the spotlight. You've seen the Q times C equals B. Pick one thing, get it right. What would I take a bullet for? What is success? Okay? And then this one I stole. We had John Kessel. Is it Kessel? Kessel, right? The USA volleyball coach. If you haven't listened to any of his stuff, pick it up, USA Volleyball. He drew this picture for us in spring training last year. What is this? Or who is this? Anybody have an idea? Guy with big ears. This is the world's best coach. The world's best coach. Big ears, big eyes, no mouth. But maybe a little one in case we have to, right? In those first couple stages, we need a little bit of a mouth right there, okay? And these are some resources. If you want to take a screenshot of this, now's your opportunity. I'm going to take it down in 30 seconds. But these are books that have impacted me, our organization. They're awesome, okay? A lot of the motor learning stuff that we've pulled is from this. A lot of the coaching techniques are from here, right? How you build habits, right here. How you learn, over here, right? Creating change. So there's a world of resources in there. I could probably put about 30 more books up there if you wanted to, but I felt like those were your best bang for your buck today, all right? Obviously, mentors, coaches, by far the best resources in my life are these guys right here. It's our peers, right? It's all about the human connection. That's all I got. Thank you for your time. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for the school. Appreciate it.
All right, guys, great day. I know we extended it a bit. We got some pizza waiting, so I think everyone's got a lot to dig in on. I see some notebooks filling up, and so again, the great part about tomorrow when we come back, we're going to be in the gym. Tomorrow is now let's see some of this in action, right? Let's that's the practical application part of it. And so in the morning, again, as you guys are thinking about it, we'll have some coffee, we'll have some donuts, and we'll take a little bit of that time and get everyone up here. And as you guys are again, coming up with more questions, we'll have an opportunity in the morning to dig in a little bit, ask some of those questions, and then we'll get after it in showing some of these drills and seeing how you communicate, what would you do here, those types of things. So definitely spend some time coming up with some of those questions for these guys for tomorrow. Again, the itinerary from the email, we're going to be over in the gym. Our speaker, Dr. Joe over there, just came in from Michigan. He's going to start us off. We've heard a lot about movements, and that's a really important one. So that'll start the day. If you guys want to take that opportunity as we set up the environment, some drills, we'll have bats. If you guys want to pick it up, and as you're exploring some of these things, feel it out. We'll have some kind of demo kids and players, but wear those comfortable clothes if you want to get in, because I know Dr. Joe is going to get you guys moving a little bit just so you can kind of feel it, understand it, so you can coach it and teach it better. So that's the kind of breakdown for tomorrow. So again, appreciate you guys being here. I'm fired up. What an awesome day. On your way out, there's pizza. Have at it, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.